I've never worked at another book publisher. I've had lots of jobs in restaurants. And so in a restaurant, you would never say like, okay, we need to get twice as much food out with the same number of backline and it'll be fine. Like it would,
it's not going to be fine.
You're going to be turning out awful food to the majority of customers. And so it was our staff that came forward and were like, everywhere I've ever worked, we've begged and pleaded. And then I went to other people and I said, is this true of your former employers? And they said, oh yeah, of course, obviously. How do you not know about this? And I said, well, because nobody's brought it up. And then it came all the way around to like, should we do this? And then people were like I got a detailed proposal that was like, why we should do this.
And you guys don't have a ton of books either. So it's amazing that you're thinking of it this way, because when you get to a larger publisher, they're like talking about, 400 books. And, so it's great that you're looking at it and, you're cutting back from, what did you say, 28 to 16?
Hi, I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 28 years.
I'm Elly Blue, the vice president of Microcosm. We started this podcast to share what we've learned with newer publishers, so you can learn from our mistakes. Or maybe you just want to learn about the publishing industry.
This week, we welcome, first time, but should have been a long time ago, special guest to the pod, Maureen Karb, head of Como Sales.
Yep.
And we're going to look at, we've always meant to do trend pieces or be on trend, but we thought we needed an expert to teach us how to be trendier. So Maureen is a field sales rep as well as being head of group. And so Maureen, what are you seeing so far as trends when you meet with bookstores?
Like the big trend these days is the growth in the romantasy type of genre. Horror is trending a lot. All the stores added horror sections. There are a lot of new, small, niche little bookstores opening up, whether they are, focusing on BIPOC authored books, whether they're focusing on romantasy, whether they're focusing on indie published books. So there's a lot happening for sure out there in different stores. And then, the established bookstores, I think, ride the trends a little bit, but also are just kind of keeping to their thing. So I think those are some of the bigger trends I'm seeing for sure.
You're seeing, you visit bookstores all day long, which seems like the dream job, talking to booksellers about books at bookstores. But it does seem like, from my perspective, that more and more bookstores are opening. Is that is that new, or is that always been happening and I'm just noticing now, or is that a trend?
No, it's definitely a trend. There's a ton of bookstores opening, and they're micro bookstores. There's I literally just had a Zoom on Monday with a mobile bookstore that's opening up close to me. And so, yeah, it's definitely, and I've been a rep selling to bookstores since 2008. So that was the beginning of kind of a drop. Like there was that recession in 2008.
Our industry is run by billionaires and conglomerates.
At Microcosm, we wanted the freedom to independently sell our books, easily pay royalties, manage our inventory, and understand our business all in one place.
That's why we've been using our own software since 2001.
Now, we want to share it with you.
Working Lit is the only business success software that is created and owned 100% by publishers for publishers.
Join Working Lit and get the agency you need to help your business grow.
Visit workinglit.com to try it for free.
And so the numbers went way down. And then I think it's been slowly growing since then. And then COVID hit. And then once, 2 years post-COVID, I think everyone's following their dreams and deciding this is the time to open a bookstore. It's very interesting. I'm very happy about it. I also am just cautious. I think I've been in the industry too long, where I'm worried about all these people, and I don't want them to, lose their money or anything like that. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
There is that. So, I mean, we predicted on this program 10 years ago the rise of the specialty bookstore. So, I mean, it was like really incredible to watch it really shift from like the general interest bookstore, we are everything to everyone, to the we only sell cookbooks from a bus kind of bookstore, which like it went far further than we predicted. But, and like the micro niche, which obviously I love, but it's fascinating. So how does that affect your role as a salesperson?
It's definitely difficult because there's stores that, if you're a horror store, I don't have a lot of horror. And so there's not going to be a lot for me to, I have a little bit. And stores that are like that, a lot of my business is I'm selling 1,500 books a season to a bookstore. And part of the reason they meet with me is because they need to look at those 1,500 books and they don't want to miss the gems. Whereas a horror store doesn't really need to look at those 1,500 books. And so it can be very hard. Like a lot of the more that they have to dig out and the less they're buying for me, it means. And so it's interesting. It makes it harder for me because I have to spend more time. Because it used to be I could make a few themed catalogs and be done. And now I feel like I have to have a romantasy theme. I have to have a horror theme. I have to have a cookbook theme. And unfortunately, the way publishing is swinging is that there are less people working on stuff like this with more books. And so, it used to be that I would have 2 people in an office somewhere there to help me. And now I don't. And so that can also make it more difficult.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this shift that you're seeing in publishing that's affecting and how it's affecting your work and bookstores?
Yeah, it's just, it's good and bad because, publishing is an industry. I feel like sometimes people forget, as lovely and as, we're all trying to make the next great work of literature, and it's art and it's wonderful, but it's a business. And so publishers are looking for growth every year. And unfortunately, the way they've decided to do that is to publish more books with less people. And so it's been happening since I started in publishing in 2006, where, you used to have huge sales team. Some of my publishers or distributors would have, 3 floors of a giant skyscraper, and there'd be assistants and everything. And now they've just kind of cut it down to the fewest possible people that you can have working on a book.
We built this software from scratch to solve our own problems starting in 2001.
It's not only the reason for our survival, but the reason we've been a Publishers Weekly fastest growing publisher 3 years in a row.
Now we want to share it with you.
Join Working Lit and get back the agency to understand your publishing business, market and sell your books, and painlessly pay royalties.
Working Lit. Doing the math for publishers.
Visit workinglit.com to give it a try for free.
Which, it makes it hard. It means I think publishing is a weird art to me, because you would never tell a painter like, oh, if only you had more opinions on that painting, you would, your art would really improve. But like with a book, I think the more people that touch it, the better it is. And I think that's not, and there are exceptions. I feel like there's going to be a lot of independently published people coming at me for that. But I think there's always exceptions, but in general, I think the more people that touch a book in the world of publishing, the better it is.
I love that. I actually love all of that. And for so many reasons, mostly because we just made the decision last year to cut from 27 books a season to 16 books a season for this exact reason, but having the same number of staff. And because we looked at the historical data and we were like, more books is not more sales. It's not better books. It's not like it's it actually hurts our sales in the long run on those titles because they don't have the evergreen lifetime sales that they did when we would do 5 to 16 books a season. And that was, it's a little hard on the ego. It's completely shocking. But in the end, we want to make better books that reach more people. So what do you think about that?
I think it's a good decision. I support that. I think, my history in publishing, I worked at one of the big 5 publishers, and that's where I started. And then I switched to a family-owned publisher. And that was kind of their way of working, were like less books, more people working on it. He would give books, and you guys do this too. They would give books second chances. So if it didn't work the first time, they would, rework it and publish it again. And you don't see that anymore. And so yes, I think that is kind of the way I grew up in publishing, was to just, feel really strongly about what you're publishing and wanting to, put it, the best that you can be, and give it a second try if it needs to. So yeah, I agree.
I mean, our staff, I feel like the minute we made that decision, it was like a weight lifted from everybody's shoulders. There was this era of almost euphoria. And this is not like a political time where people are feeling euphoria, but
right.
Still riding that wave a little bit.
Yeah, no publicist, no marketing person, no editor is like, oh, I want to get 3 more books.
Even the salespeople were like, enough.
Yeah.
So, even just as a reader, I feel like I am a book discoverability expert, and I have trouble finding books I want to read because there's so much book out there. And I feel like I would find more books that I enjoyed if there were fewer to choose between. And I don't know, hear my call, readers.
And so partly this is, it's our call to other publishers to do the same and see the benefits, because I think you're right. It would make the industry better on the whole for booksellers.
Yeah.
And you and I and publishers.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub.
On Twitter at Microcosm.
On Facebook at Microcosm Publishing.
On Instagram at Microcosm_pub.
And here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.